We have Richard. Welcome. Thank you. We're staying right on track too, which is a miracle.
I'm sure I can break that.
Yeah, it's good. Excellent.
Lovely. Good morning, everybody. I'm Richard Waterhouse. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Chief Executive. We are a completely separate business. We are a normal commercial trading business with one very big exception. It's 100% dividend at the end of the year. To dollar terms, our turnover is about 26, 27 million, and we give the RIBA about 5 architecture to invest in to fulfill its own, which is to promote the benefits of architecture both in the UK and around the world. As the NBS business, because we have two parts to RIBA Enterprises. One is RIBA Services, so we publish the RIBA Journal. We've got RIBA Bookshops, RIBA Publishing, and the recruitment business. The bits I'm going to talk about today are NBS, which was originally the National Building Specification. It's now Connected Data. So this is the first version of NBS back in 1973. It came out of a UK report on inefficiency and poor quality in the UK construction industry. Sounds like a message we could hear today. Interestingly, back in 1973, in the inside cover, you'll find this diagram. This is about how you link geometry with product information, cost information, and specifications. That sounds like the same problem we've got today. Same things keep being reimagined using different media, but we're now going to move on into digital construction. We wanted to show our customers how to use the technologies that we've developed, so we did it on ourselves. This is our building up in the northeast of England. It is a historic building. We would call it a listed building. It's the old post office. So the first thing we did was laser scan it, which was great fun, an education exercise. So we were recording what happened so we could explain to our customers what we were doing. We gave these models then to our design teams, and they worked it up, and then gave it to the constructors to actually deliver for us. And we've got a lovely, lovely office now. Some bits worked really well, some bits didn't. It was great for us to understand how we could improve the things that we do. So, great opportunity. When we talked about BIM, though, one thing became very obvious to me some years ago was when we talk about BIM in the UK or in Europe, it's like what you talk about as BIM here in the US and in Canada. So I think being clear what we think this is a good starting point. The International Standards Organization, ISO, give us quite a nice definition of what they think BIM is. That's a relatively simple view. My favorite bit of that is about decisions. It's about having a reliable basis for making decisions. It doesn't say design decisions. It doesn't say construction decisions. It doesn't say operational decisions. It's just about decision-making using information. For us, we tried to extend that just to be a little bit clearer about what we meant by this. It is not geometry. It was great to hear. You can't get BIM in a box. Just because you've got Revit does not mean you're doing BIM. How are you linking it to other disciplines, other sets of data to improve the process? Because it is all about improving the process. It's also not about the technology. So you'll see in a minute the UK government set up a task force. This chap, Dave Philp, was given the job of pushing out level 2. And he very quickly identified technology is not the problem. It's people. It's culture. It's that unwillingness to change, the inertia of not doing things differently, not trying to find the better way of delivering projects for our clients. So that's what we've all got to try and do. We saw a little bit earlier about the lack of productivity and productivity change in the construction industry. It's not a technology issue, it's a people issue. So we can see it's happened in other industries. We've gone, as we saw earlier, from lots of music on LPs and on vinyl to every song you've got in your pocket. We've gone, anybody still got a VCR? We just stream stuff. Books and into Kindles. What's happened in all of these industries is fundamental structural change. That's the bit we're worried about in construction. We're worried, what's it going to mean for me? Well, the reality is somebody's going to change it. Do you want to be that agent of change, or do you want to be the person that has the result of that change? Because it is coming. We can't say that we are a digital industry. Just because we've gone from a drawing board to 3D is not digital disruption. Digital disruption is when we fundamentally change the process, when we start looking at things like off-site assembly, automatic creation of buildings, 3D printing of buildings. There's a building in Dubai right now which is 3D printed. So it's happening. Do you want to lead that, or do you want to be the result of it? If you look at the UK, the government of the UK was pushing. Why were they pushing? Well, this is near where I live. This is Hadrian's Wall. It's the furthest north that the Romans could get back, 2,000 years ago. They tried to conquer the Scots, didn't work. We've still been trying it, still can't do it. So we built the wall. The Romans built the wall. Every stone handcrafted, put one on top of the other. They built underfloor heating, cavity walls 2,000 years ago. The Italian engineers showed us how to do it. 2,000 years later, we're doing the same thing. We've not moved on, one brick on top of another. But people say, well, we don't need to change. We build beautiful buildings already. This is the anthill mob. It's a beautiful car. But to get it to move, they've got to work really hard. Actually, what the government wants is a bit more Italian engineering. It's having teamwork, understanding the objective for that team, getting the team to work together and deliver things efficiently and effectively. These people can put a tank of fuel in and change 4 tyres in less time than it takes me to turn the car off and get out of the door. That's what we've got to look for in terms of process improvements. So this chap, Francis Maud, came along back in 2010, 2011 and said we're going to change the UK construction industry. He talks about process improvements and supply chain. He talks about digital construction. So why did he do it? Why did he say we're going to change the industry? It started with money, because it always does. Treasury looked at KPIs, key performance indicators on the value of construction and the economic return of construction in the UK, and said, you know, UK construction industry, it's more expensive than other industries. We need to make it more efficient. Oh, by the way, we've also got these carbon targets that we've got to hit. We're still sticking to those carbon targets in the UK. So we've got to get better at carbon, and we've got to get better at efficiency, and BIM comes in to the efficiency plan. That's where we've got to go. And you may have seen it's called the Bew-Richards, the implementation of BIM, to create an understanding of where we are and where we need to get to. So the red line was our target for 2000. Group run by Mark Bew, and they gave him £4 million to change the industry. So if you look at the bottom, you see the headlines for what level 0, level 1, and 2, level 3 look like. We're on the left hand side, we're all comfortable with paper, but as we just a little bit earlier, paper is the death of information. That's how you kill information, put it on paper. The next step is to look at collaboration using files, sharing files. That's great, it's a step forward, still locked in. Actually, what you need to do is collaborate. And going up to that red line, you need to change contractual relationships between parties. So that's a key point. It does not require a different contractual relationship. When we get into single sets of parties complicated. But we're certainly not there. So the 2016 objective, just 3 things we had to do. It's simple. 3D collaborative environment. It didn't say BIM. It said 3D collaborative environment. Put your models together. COBE as an output, because the cost of construction, the cost of the built environment is actually its operation, not the construction phase. Let's make sure we can optimize the operation. Oh, and if you could save 20% capital cost at the same time, that would be great. So that was our target. That's what we had to get to. That £4 million that Mark View was given was pushed into a number of areas, one of which was creating the standard, the protocols for how to do it. We had to educate an industry on how to work differently. There's also a competition to develop a classification system for BIM and also the digital plan of work. We've got to get the process right and the information requirements, the data structures right, to be able to exchange information effectively. Our organisation won that contract to do these last 2 things. We'll see the output of that in just a minute. We've also heard talk of models. As a construction industry, we think the world starts and ends with us. We are vital to the success of economies because we create the infrastructure, the assets on which an economy can grow. Actually, our bit is that little bit down at the bottom right here. That's us. These are the models over here. There is the project model down there, the PIM, and then there's the asset model, which is something that the owner of that asset will maintain over time. And we know they have to be different because of the complexity of information. The information needed to manage an asset is different to the product information. But there's all this other stuff over here. Employers' requirements, operational requirements, organisational requirements that clients have to understand. And part of this was making the UK government an educated client. So it had to educate itself as a commissioner of architecture, of buildings, of roads, etc. So there's a lot of money spent on that as well as on the standards. The reality was that the first 3 demo projects on which BIM was tried in the UK paid back that original £4 million investment. To the point where government said, hold on, this works. Let's give Mark View another £6 million to really make it fly. So that's what happened. He got another £6 million. So the cost of the UK BIM implementation was £10 million. Let's come back to that information, because information is fundamental to all of this. It's that middle word in BIM. What we had to do was define the information requirements at the different stages of the construction process. That dotted vertical line is where you hand over. The amount of information at that balloon 5 is less than the information at balloon 4, because that's when you're going to hand over information to the client. So this is where LOD comes in, and another concept called LOI, level of information. You'll see it now, because this is how we go through the different stages. Another thing that UK government had to do was get all the different disciplines to have the same project plan. We all had different versions of the project plan, which means as a client, nobody could understand where the different disciplines were. The engineer had a different plan to the architect, had a different plan to the EP, etc. So the government pushed all of the institutes to have a common project plan. This is the RIBA version, which identifies at each stage what an architect has to do. There are the same ones of these of all of the different disciplines. Once we got that down in paper, we could digitize the requirements, what you have to do at each stage. So the other point to recognise was that that plan is not linear, it's circular. It goes round and round and round, cradle to cradle. So at some point you have to decommission the building, either knock it down or repurpose it, and start that design process again. So this is a tool, the toolkit that came out of it. What we can see here, well, you won't be able to make it out, I don't think, it's a bit fuzzy, but we understand here we're at stage 3, we're identifying what the deliverables are. We've got a classification structure for every deliverable. There's just over 5,700 of them. There are tasks as well. Who's going to do it? And and there we've got LOD and LOI. If we have a look, you'll recognise something like that from the LODs here. We can identify what its classification is, what the geometry should look like, and the requirements for geometry can be very different when you get into MEP, because you've not only got the product, you've got service zones and things like that. We've also then got information requirements as well. So these are the property sets. What are the properties that you need to be able to exchange at different stages during the life of the project? We've defined what they are. But all of this is free. You can go onto the site now and use this information. So, what we think in terms of the workflow is that you would start the project, you'll work out who the parties are to the project, you invite them in, you identify who's going to do what and when, you identify all of the systems and the levels of development level of information at each stage, so you can then validate, as you go through those stages, whether the information has been delivered. The reality is, everybody jumps straight into geometry, because we feel comfortable with geometry. But where's that information coming from the geometry? Are you doing your own objects? What's the naming convention for those objects? What's the naming convention for things like fire resistance, or fire integrity, or fire performance? If you don't get that right, when you interrogate the model, do you find all the right objects? If you want to check in Celebri, can you actually do your fire plan to make sure you've got half-hour rating or 1 hour rating consistently around different zones? It's all about the information. So we've done that because we built an object library, and we continue to develop the object library. And in there, we've got consistent property sets. We know that the right property sets exist in each one of these objects. There are concept objects, there are generic objects, and then there are manufacturer's own objects in there as well, thousands and thousands of them. We've also got a relationship with Autodesk. It's great to see Autodesk in the room. And we've built a link using one of the plugins or add-ins into Revit. So if you do build your geometry model and you use the objects, we can interrogate the model and we can automatically create the specification. And we link the specification and the geometry model together. But what we also do is link building code, standards, and other technical information to those models as well. Remember that definition right at the start? It's all about making effective decisions. To make effective decisions, you have to have the right information at your fingertips. And that's what we've done. So working further with Autodesk, this is a tool which is out on beta at the moment. It's built on the Forge platform. This is the same BIM toolkit, but we can now see with the model in the middle. On the left-hand side, we've got all the systems, so we can navigate around the model through the systems. For any system, we can pick out the specification, but we can also pick out quantities as well, so we can start adding cost information to the model. This is all free to use for anybody, so you can give the links to your clients. You do not need Revit to look at this. You do not need our specification software to look at the data. This is all part of the BIM toolkit itself. So, a number of people have looked at what we've done in the UK. This is Patrick McCready. He's Chief Exec of HOK. He's also President of Building Smart. He quite liked what we've done. Phil Bernstein, who was at Autodesk, is now a Fellow of Autodesk, looking at what's happened in the UK. So yes, this is a fantastic programme, and is now at the forefront of adoption worldwide. And it works in money terms as well. So the UK government has its own audit function, like all governments do. They've audited the spend on projects using BIM. And in the previous financial year, we spent £3.6 billion on projects using BIM and saved £855 million. Now, when we started this journey, the mantra was we need to save 20% of capital cost. They then realised that actually if you do that, we would reduce our GDP by 1%. Not a good idea. So the new mantra is build 6 schools for the price of 5. So you keep the spend the same, but you improve the output. That comes back to that productivity gap. How can we improve productivity? Well, we can do it by using really simple, pragmatic tools. Problem with government is when they set you a target and you achieve it, because we got to 23.6% in that financial year saving, When you achieve a target, you say, right, let's give them another one. So this is now our new one. This is Construction 2025. It's called Digital Built Britain. And it's taking the evolution that we've gone through so far to level 2 to revolution with level 3. Our target's now to save 33% of cost. And this is from a baseline, of course. It's not from where we are now, it's from the original baseline. We need to build in half the time. Well, actually, that's going to mean there needs to be a change in how we actually regulate and check the industry. We've also got a problem with carbon, and we've got a huge balance of trade problem in the UK. We import £12 billion more construction product than we export, so we need to do something about that as well. We have to have fundamental change to be able to deliver this. It comes back to that team. It's about bringing the teams together. It's also about recognising the in-use behaviour. One thing about that car going around a track is they know everything that's going on. They can tweak that car to make sure it's always running at optimum performance. We need to do the same with buildings. We've already heard about sensor technology. Well, this is one of the diagrams that's coming through, both at the international level in ISO and some of the work in the UK, looking at how we can get links to Internet of Things and sensor technology, linking that to weather data so that we can see whether we need to change the sensor, change the operation of the building, looking at how we link to suppliers to get improvements in supply chain for the day-to-day operation of the building. So you'll see more of this, but at its heart, it's still BIM, but around there's a provenance wrapper for information and security. Do not forget about data security and cyber security. There's also a lot going on in Europe as well, so part of level 3 is pushing into Europe and internationally. Europe now has a single BIM committee with a number of different subcommittees looking at how we can be consistent across borders. Yes, I know the UK might not be in Europe in 2 years' time, but it's our biggest trading partner. We've still got to engage with them, so we're still working there, still friends, So part of level 3 work for the UK is level 2 legacy and making sure we keep doing that. We've also got to start looking at things that we know about and how we can improve it. That's the IoT stuff. And then pushing into areas we don't understand yet, true research. So those areas where we have to develop in the future. At European level, engaging with the European standards, ISO standards, building smart. We've got Roger we're going to hear from this afternoon, and making sure we actually can exchange data. It's madness that from our phones we can book a hotel room anywhere in the world, but we can't order a construction product. That's madness. That's one of the measures of a truly digital construction industry. Other things that are happening that we can start playing with. Once you've got the right information, we can start doing some other clever things, like we call it health and safety, but this is looking at how we can improve health and safety using the information in models. So this is another standard that's currently out for consultation. Once again, if you go to the British Standards site, you can actually go and download this and make comment on it if you like to do that. But standards are fundamental to all of this. It is about how we can input into international exchange of information. If you want to work across the world, wouldn't it be great to work the same way wherever you go? Process has to be the same, output has to be different, because architecture is different in every case. But it is about engaging through. You will never see, because if we do our job properly, you won't notice. It's rather like driving a car. You press the pedals, you turn the wheel, hopefully everything works. That's what we're trying to do with information. Lots and lots of free standards. Those standards that the UK government bought, you can go onto this site. So this is level 2 BIM. Just search for BSI level 2 BIM. You'll come to this site. You can go and download all of those standards, all of those documents. It gives you guidance on how to actually go about delivering BIM at, once again, a really pragmatic level. So there you go, there's the two sites. The first one is our site, the MBS site, and the second one is where you can go and get those standards. What I couldn't do today was really go through some of the products that we have. We're not allowed to do that in these presentations. But tomorrow we are running 2 sessions in the afternoon where we'll actually go through what the products are and how we're developing for the US and looking at US markets as well. We'd love to talk to you about that. If you do want to be involved, please do drop either Steve Hamill over there, just raising his hand, or myself, and we'll get you into one of those sessions tomorrow where we can show you actually how this stuff really works. But just in summary, the UK has been pushing heavily in digital construction. We've done well. We've been running a BIM survey in the UK now for 6 years. We're about to publish the latest one. Back in 2011, I think only 12% of the UK industry were using BIM. We're now up to 55%, Hammy? Something like that. So not all the industry is using it. It does take time to change an industry, but it is a massive change. Things like the toolkit and analysing use of the data are fundamental, but the really big issue is recognising what's being commissioned is content, not drawings, and that content is to be used by a constructor and then by the operator. So you've got to think about how you're going to exchange that data through the life cycle. Thank you very much.
Very good. So, any questions for Richard?
Some silence.
No?
Why grass?
No. No, it's more of a comment. I guess it's kind of a comment wrapped in a question. Because
Okay.
a lot of the stuff that you mentioned was very much in terms of integrating with different teams. And because we're a design firm and we do work internationally, we work at different levels of standards. We do work in the Caribbean, we do work in the Middle East, we do work everywhere. And working with our subs, we talk about that integrated design approach. We try to get them on board from a workshop brainstorm session, even from concept design.
Yeah.
But the technology that we're using, we're getting into Revit, we're getting into BIM. Our clients demand this, but our sub-consultants halfway around the world are not using the same thing. So it's becoming very difficult for us to make that transition. So we're becoming the educators, the thought leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you have any recommendations, since you guys have gone through this, mainly for the construction industry, of course, of how we can bring them on board a lot easier from a design perspective? I know you're more construction-based, but...
Oh no, this is all. We support design right the way through. We can give you lots of data that shows return on investment. There's a really great practice in the UK. David Miller Architects, and they were unusual in that there are only 10 of them, and they documented their investment and their return on investment, and they've done that since about 2009. And they can show that you don't have to be a large practice to invest and get a massive return. Actually, they're growing like mad now as a result, because they invested in these tools and they can deliver projects at a scale that you would normally expect from a much larger practice, because they are so efficient. It's about being able to demonstrate to smaller organisations that they can improve their efficiency. There's another practice next door to our office in the UK, and they are a larger practice, and what they've been doing is incentivising through the fee scale the consultants that they work with to say, well, if you operate in BIM, we'll give you a little bit more at first, not all the way through, but at first, to cover the investment that's needed, knowing that on the next project when they work with them and they bring it back down to the normal percentage fees, that consultant is now more efficient, so they're more profitable working through this route with BIM. So once again, it comes back to, it's not just about the technology, it's about how to work with the people. If you're already doing workshops, but you're already trying to help these other third parties to work that way, you're doing everything right. You already are.
Another question.
Yeah, talk about facilities, dashboards, and how you're bringing added value to your clients and how they're utilizing it.
Okay, so there's the standards that were created, you might have noticed, one of them was COBE. So we took COBE, because COBE is a great standard for data exchange. We had to tweak it slightly to suit the UK environment. But that allows the product model, the project model, to be pushed into the asset management tools, the CAFM tools. There's then a PAS standard. So it's not a full British standard. It's a publicly available specification, but it has some of the weight of a standard that then allows the operational teams to understand what they're supposed to do with that information, how they're supposed to manage it, etc. And that improves the way that the facilities managers can actually use the models that are provided without the complexity of a product model. The person who's been pushing on this, Mark Bew, actually did a PhD looking at outcomes on all this. So he's about to publish his work, which will then give some detailed figures for the savings that can be made. The original savings stuff, you've probably seen Bim Bam Boom. Have you come across that one? Looking at the factors of cost, saying that design is a factor of 1, construction is a factor of 10, operation is a factor of 100 over the life cycle of the building. It's taking that principle and trying to put some data against it. But the reason we did PAS standards for this is it takes 3 years to write the full standard. The PAS standards we can do in 6 months, and it's good enough to get people starting to work in the right direction.
One more question? Come on.
Now I'm worried because Kim won't ask a question.
It's more of a question statement, but obviously doing this is lifting the capabilities of the industry in the UK and it's giving value back to the government. But what do you project as far as a building industry in the UK on a worldwide market being more competitive? Can you help encourage the US to think in these terms?
Yeah, absolutely. And the UK government has made no bones about what its intent is. Its intent is to give UK construction industry the skills and capability to work around the world. The UK government has recognised that we're moving into a global construction industry.